The world's worst EV tax has now been struck down in court. The articles that are referenced in this video are from The Driven by Rachel Williamson and Bryce Gatton. So the Australian High Court has ruled that the Victoria EV tax is unconstitutional, and the court stated that the tax is not a license or a permit fee, but a tax on the use of an EV, which only the federal government has jurisdiction and can impose those sorts of taxes. There was a little bit of controversy, is that only 3 of the 7 judges dissented. The case was initiated by electric vehicle owner Chris Vanderstock and engineering consultant Kathleen Davies. Their lawyer, David Hertzberg, called the ruling a landmark constitutional decision. So the ruling sets a precedence that will likely prevent other Australian states from implementing a similar legislation, which I'm very excited about. Especially in South Australia, there was one tabled and mentioned, almost made in South Australia, but thankfully, it did not make it. Davies hopes that the ruling will encourage the federal government to establish a national policy on the transition to EV and road taxes. Hopefully that comes with incentives rather than just taxes, but we'll have to wait and see. Vanderstock believes that the tax discouraged Victorians from buying EVs and punished existing EV owners, which makes a lot of sense. I don't want to have to pay extra. A 2021 poll indicated that 7 out of the 10 South Australians were less likely to buy an EV because of a similar tax, which has since been abolished. I'm also very happy about. So EV advocates admit that road taxes for EVs are inevitable, but argue that it's now too early for Australians. Any future road taxes should be national, which again, this is why this court case was successful, and to consider the economic costs of emissions. So there's a little bit of uncertainty about here, but there was some reports early on that the road taxes were unlikely to be refunded that had previously been paid. But there's also been some news from New South Wales government and Victorian governments about their different taxes and what will actually happen. So onto the New South Wales government's reaction. The New South Wales government claims it's unfair that electric vehicles owners don't pay a specific road tax, which I guess makes sense, but it should be federal. And the government is studying implications of the High Court ruling that invalidated the EV tax in Victoria. So New South Wales Treasurer Daniel Mukeen emphasised the need for fair rules in the transition to net zero emissions. New South Wales plans to start talks with other states and territories about the ruling. The state confirmed it will impose an EV road tax from July 2027 and will scrap EV rebates and stamp duty accessions by the end of the year. So they're still going ahead with the tax, even though it was the Victorian one was unconstitutional. That seems a little bit silly to me. The perception that EV owners don't contribute to road maintenance is challenged by a 2017 Productivity Commission review. The review states that road maintenance funding comes from various channels, including taxes that EV owners already pay, such as council rates, luxury car taxes, stamp duties, and registration fees. In regards to the state versus the federal responsibility, the federal government is responsible for fuel excise tax, which amounted to $12.1 billion in revenue in the 2021 financial year. On to the Vic government or Vic Roads response. So Vic Roads put out a notice on their website stating that they will contact all electric and plug-in hybrid car owners to explain the implications of the decision, and they're prioritising contacting those who made complaints to the Victorian Ombudsman. A Vic Roads employee mentioned that there is a process that will be put in place to refund the charges, contradicting that earlier statement that we've heard that refunds are going to be unlikely. There's no specific timeline for when the refunds will be given. The Victoria government has not made a decision on the refunds yet. They stated, "We're disappointed with the outcome, but accept the court's ruling will take time to consider the judgment." So the road charge raised $3.9 million in 2022-2023 and $1.2 million in 2021 to 2022 financial year. So I think this was just a really horrible tax and very likely reduced the amount of EV sales in Victoria just when things were really picking up. It has been a controversial tax ever since it was released, and I'm so glad that it was eventually struck down. It was so strange that a Labor government in Australia that is normally more keen for more progressive environmental policies was the one that introduced this policy in the first place.